Love on a bet. Emma looked at Daniel and thought that he would never look at her that way. Not because she wasn't enough, he just didn't look at anyone like that. Everything in his life was neatly categorized: work, friends, hobbies. And for feelings, there was a separate folder labeled Later. She'd made her peace with it long ago. She had Jason, polite, predictable. He never forgot her birthday, but never asked how her day was either. It was convenient. Safe. Empty. "Daniel, you're just not capable of falling in love," said Martha, setting down her cup. There was no insult in her tone, just observation. "You've got everything under control: schedules, deadlines, logic. Where's your heart in all that?" "Oh, it's there," he grinned. "I just don't throw it around carelessly. If I wanted, I could fall in love tomorrow." "With who?" asked Ryan. "The barista," everyone jokingly called the preacher. Daniel shrugged, and something in Emma clicked. Maybe it was exhaustion from playing it safe. Maybe it was the quiet ache of realizing life was slipping past like someone else's movie. "With me," she said, calmly, with a faint smile. "1 month. But if you really fall for me, I'm not promising I'll feel the same." Silence hovered over the table. Someone smiled, someone frowned. She just took another sip of coffee, as if nothing had happened. But deep inside, something stirred, that old quiet feeling she hadn't let herself hear in years. Week 1. Daniel approached the challenge methodically. A good morning text every day at 8 o'clock. Flowers every Friday. Coffee invites twice a week. New café each time. Emma read his messages and smiled. "Try adding a bit of emotion," she teased. "It sounds like you're filing a report. Task completed, awaiting feedback." He laughed, but felt awkward. He was doing everything right, and yet it felt hollow, like completing a test project for a job he didn't really want. A few days later, he stopped by Ryan's coffee shop. Ryan, the preacher, got his nickname after joining a local church and giving up swearing. "So how'd you become the preacher?" the guys used to joke. "Read too many manuals on life. Finally found one that works." Maybe he'd been searching for God, or maybe God had been searching for him. Even Ryan wasn't sure who found whom first. Now he stood behind the counter, wiping a mug, listening to Daniel. "I'm doing everything right. Flowers, compliments, attention, and yet I feel nothing." That's because you're playing at love. Love isn't a game you win. Start acting as if you already love her. No calculations. Just do things because you want her to be okay. So, water the plant first, wait for it to grow? Exactly. And don't stop when it gets boring. That's when it's really growing. Daniel nodded, but wasn't sure he understood. Meanwhile, Emma sat at home rereading his texts. Jason had messaged, "How's your day?" She replied, told him about work and how tired she felt. He sent back an emoji, and that was it. She glanced at the flowers from Daniel, still fresh, still beautiful. But her heart ached, because she knew they weren't really for her. They were for the bet. Mid-month. 2 weeks in, Emma caught a bad cold. Jason texted, "Get better soon, heart," and disappeared for the rest of the day. That evening, her doorbell rang. Daniel stood there, soaked from the rain, holding a bag. Tea, honey, lemons. Medicine. "You're sick," he said simply. "I can leave it here if you don't want company." She let him in. He made tea, cooked a light soup from whatever he found in her fridge, and sat at the table with his laptop. "What are you doing?" she asked, surprised. "Working, if you don't mind. Just figured you shouldn't be alone in case you feel worse." She lay on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching him. The way he focused on the screen, the way he looked up occasionally to ask, "You okay?" And she thought, it's all pretend, so why does it hurt so much? After he left, she couldn't sleep. Finally, she texted Martha, "I think I'm falling for something that isn't even real." Daniel couldn't sleep either. He kept thinking about her smile when he brought the soup, about her quiet thank you, about how somewhere along the way the bet had stopped mattering. He just wanted her to feel better. And somewhere in the night, he realized he'd stopped counting the days. Next morning, how are you feeling? Need anything? I can bring it. No good morning, no routine, just that. She looked at her phone and smiled through tears. The break. That evening, after meeting with friends, they walked home side by side. Halfway down the street, Emma stopped. "Don't," she said softly. "Don't what?" Daniel asked. "This. All of this. It's not funny anymore." "Why?" "Because I don't believe you. You're doing this because you said you would. And I need something real. I can't get used to something that isn't going to last." He opened his mouth, but found no words. She smiled, tired, sad. "Thanks for the month, really. But let's stop before it hurts more." And she walked away without looking back. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. In the morning, he went to see Ryan. The café was just opening. "She told me to stop," Daniel said quietly. "She doesn't believe it's real." Ryan poured 2 cups of coffee and sat across from him. "Did you prove her wrong?" "I did everything. Flowers, attention, care." "That's not proof," Ryan said calmly. "That's activity. You prove it with time. Love isn't a 30-day contract. If it's real, you stay, even when no one's watching, even if she doesn't answer." "But she told me to stop." "She told you to stop the game, not the love." Daniel stared out the window. Rain was falling outside. I don't even know how to do that." "None of us do," Ryan smiled. "You just keep showing up, one day at a time. No guarantees." The final week. Jason started to get jealous, not from Daniel, but from the attention he himself had never given. At dinner one night, he said, "You've been different lately." "Maybe," she replied quietly. "It's that guy, Daniel, isn't it?" "It's me. I'm just tired of pretending that enough is enough." "Enough of what?" "Emojis instead of conversations. How is work instead of how are you? Convenience instead of closeness." He put down his phone, the same one he'd been scrolling all evening. "We're just different people," he said finally. "Yes," she nodded. "And that's okay." They parted quietly. No drama, just 2 people who'd realized they were walking in different directions. That night she sat by the window for a long time, thinking about Daniel, about the soup, the tea, his voice asking, "You okay?" and how he'd looked at her, like she actually mattered. But it was just a bet, a game, a 1-month experiment, wasn't it? She picked up her phone, stared at his name, then typed, "You awake?" The doorbell rang 20 minutes later. He stood there, soaked, breathless, without an umbrella. "You ran here?" she asked. "Yeah, figured it'd be faster." She stepped aside and he came in. They sat on the floor, backs against the couch. Silence. Then she whispered, "The month's over." "I know." "You won the bet." "No," he said, turning to her. "I lost my calm, my control, my perfect order, and maybe found something much better." She looked at him, and this time there was no game in his eyes. "And if I still don't believe you? Then I'll prove it, not in a month, for as long as it takes." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Idiot. Why would you even want this?" "No idea. Ask the preacher. He says love isn't an accident. It's a choice." A few months later. Same cafe, same table, same group of friends. Daniel automatically handed Emma her coffee, no sugar, extra milk. She stole half his croissant without asking, knowing he'd never finish it anyway. Ryan watched them, wiping a cup, smiling. "So, love's just chemistry after all." Daniel glanced at Emma, laughing at something Martha said. "Yeah," he said, "but turns out the recipe isn't a formula. It's character." "And patience," Emma added, twining her fingers with his. "And patience," he agreed. Ryan smiled and quoted softly, "Love is patient, love is kind." "Don't start preaching," Martha teased. "That's not a sermon," Ryan said with a grin. "It's just the manual, the one that works." They all laughed. Outside, the first snow was falling, and the café lights spilled warmth onto the cold street, like a promise that even in the darkest winter, there's always a place that's warm and someone waiting with the right cup of coffee and the right kind of love.